Hey there guys, welcome to the next video here on PopCultureCrafts. This is the first tutorial that I've had in a long time here on the channel, so I'm really excited to finally bring back some tutorials to this channel. Alright, so this is probably going to be the simplest tutorial that I've ever filmed on the channel, and it's going to be Doctor Who related, which is always really cool. We're going to be making the Christmas hat, which was featured in the Doctor Who episode A Christmas Carol. It was during the 11th Doctor's reign on the show. And it's been a long time since I saw the special, but it was really only featured this hat for I think maybe about 10 or 12 seconds in the episode. It's really simple to make. It's just a whole bunch of felts. We're using a little bit of hot glue and a little bit of a ribbon around the bottom. And it's a really simple handmade hat, which is featured on the show as being kind of handmade. So it's going to work really well for making this. So as before, all of the things you're going to need are listed in the description box below. Now let's head on down to the workstation and start making the hat. Alright, so the first thing you need to know is that the hat has a very distinct homemade feel to it, as you can see in both its appearance and construction. It is very homemade like that, and that's exactly what the Doctor Who prop department was going for. It definitely didn't take them very long to come up with this prop. They kind of just threw it together, and that was exactly what they used for the about 5 or 6 seconds of screen time from what I remember. It's really simple to make. You really only need 2 giant pieces of red felt, this is kind of like the thicker felt. It's a little bit firm. I have 2 different colors here. You have kind of like a light yellow and an island lime color, which was for the circle on top, of course. You got 2 different colors of the circle. And then you just need some kind of a gold ribbon. This one's a little bit thicker than the original one that I used, and it's not exactly glitter, it's actual fabric ribbon, and that's what we're going to be using for this one. And then a hot glue gun and just a few simple things like a ruler and a pencil, and we'll be getting started here on the hat. So here we go. Okay, so at this point you can plug your glue gun in. That'll take a little while to heat up. We're going to take our first piece of the stiff red felt, and we're going to measure 7.5 inches from the bottom. So I have a nice pencil mark right about there from where it is. Then we're going to take the ruler, and we're going to very simply just kind of draw a line straight across here, and then this entire piece on the bottom is going to be the entire hat. So a nice kind of just small line. You definitely want to use a pencil because it's not really noticeable. And then as soon as I get this line done, I'm going to do the exact same measurement on my other piece, and then we're going to cut it out. All of this piece, you can't really see the line, but everything above that line is going to be cut off, and that's going to be extra, and we're going to use what's on the bottom here. So I'm going to mark the other one, and then I'm going to cut it right on the line. So after I've cut it, I'll have these 2 larger pieces, which is what I'll be using for the hat, and then I have these 2 pieces on top, which are just extra. Maybe you can use those for another craft or something like that, but this is exactly what we're going to work on. That's going to be the entire height of the hat, and then we're going to eventually we're going to cut those those spikes into it to make it look more kind of like a crown and a Christmas hat. So now we're going to work on gluing it next. So by now your hot glue gun should be all heated up and ready to go. Now I'm going to explain to you exactly what we're going to do beforehand, because you don't really get too many second chances with hot glue and felt, because it really makes its way into the material and you really can't pull it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap. I'm going to glue this piece onto this piece here by about it's about 1/4 of an inch, in between a 1/4 and a 1/2 inch, maybe go closer to a 1/2 inch right there. I'm going to put a little line of glue right here, and then I'm going to stick it on just like that. So let's do that step right now. Make sure you do it right on the first time, not to freak you out or anything, but you definitely want to get it right on the first try, because you're probably not going to get a second try. So as I said, I'm going to do this fairly quickly. I'm going to use a whole bunch of hot glue. As long as you don't use too much, you should be able to use a decent amount without it bleeding right through. That's probably not going to happen with stiff felt. And then once you get it lined up, we're going to just push it down and hold it. You should feel a little bit of the heat kind of coming through the felt, and that's okay. It shouldn't be enough to burn you because it's decently thick. It'll take a little while to seep through if you definitely put too much in, but it should dry and you probably won't see it. So as long as that's held on, you want to let it dry for about 30 minutes or so, or not 30 minutes, 30 seconds. It'll take about 30 seconds for it to dry, and then we'll be able to kind of work it around and see if it fits to your head. So now that we have one very long rectangular piece of felt, we're going to take a little bit of duct tape, just a small piece here, doesn't matter what color you're using, of course, and I'm going to fold it in on itself like this. And I want to keep making this smaller, kind of making the size of the hat, until you get to a size that looks like it might fit you. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take my piece of duct tape, and this is just going to be a temporary hold to see if that measurement works. So I'm going to stick that down, and then I'm going to try it on and see if I can slip it onto my head without it, being too loose, but also not too tight as well. And of course, take into account if your hair gets all tangled up in it as well. So I'm going to see if that works. Alright, so I adjusted it to get that perfect fit. It was a little too loose for the first try, so I kind of tightened it up a little bit, and then I stuck that down, tried it on, it fits great. So I'm going to take my pencil now, and I'm going to mark exactly where my overlapping sheet is here. So wherever that ends up, you're going to mark a small little line right there, and now you can take off your piece of duct tape. We don't need that anymore. And then we're going to trim off a little bit, because you can tell there's a lot of extra felt in there. We don't exactly need all that. Well, I'm going to actually go in about 1/2 inch or so, maybe actually a little bit more than 1/2 inch, about 3/4 inch, and I'm going to cut all that extra piece off. And that's going to be all this extra that you see inside the hat here. And we're not going to need that. We're just going to toss that aside. So now we have a much more manageable piece of felt to work with, and now you see that mark is still there. I came out about 3/4 inch right there. Now what I'm going to do is once again take my hot glue gun. I'm going to put a whole bunch of hot glue right there, and then I'm going to stick that down so that this line, of course, lines up with that little mark, and that should be exactly the size of my head right about there. So once again, take that glue, put it right about there, and then just seal it up, lining up the line and the mark. Now once again we get to use our glue gun. I have my gold ribbon. This actually goes all the way around the bottom of the hat, as you can kind of see on the original one. This one's a little bit thicker. It's a lot better quality ribbon than I used the first time. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to glue it so that you have about I would say maybe 1/8 inch on the bottom so you can see just a little bit of the red on the bottom, and that's going to go all the way around. You're just going to use a little bit of hot glue at a time, and then kind of just one dab here, stick it on, one dab, stick it on, and do that all the way around the entire hat till you get all the way back, and then you can just glue it right back onto itself. So that's what it's going to look like when you have that nice ribbon all the way around. Now, like I said before, you definitely want it to be homemade, so don't worry if you messed up a little bit. It'll just go to making it look that much more realistic. Now we're going to work on cutting out, the spikes on the top, which of course kind of turns it into a crown party hat. So we're going to take our pencil once again, and I actually made a mistake when I made this one because the spikes are too narrow. They need to be kind of like more spread out a little bit. There aren't quite as many spikes in that one as there are in the original one on the show. So what we're going to do is you're going to choose a point, and then you're just going to kind of just draw a faint outline. And of course this is just a marker, so you really don't need to, this doesn't need to be perfect. And then you're just going to connect the dots all the way around and try to draw it really faint. You don't want it to be incredibly even. Of course you can kind of work with it, make it the spikes a little bit larger, a little bit farther down on the felt. That's totally up to you. And then we're just going to go like this all the way around. You definitely want to connect it so you have that perfect zigzag pattern though, so that it connects together on each one. And we're going to do this however you want to do it all the way around the hat. Once you get a good spike pattern, we're going to take our pair of scissors and we're going to start the cutting. So just start really at any point, and you're going to cut exactly on those lines. Make sure you don't go too farther than just the pencil marks that you used originally. Of course, that is if they're good. And you can, of course, cut these down as far as you want. You can definitely stagger them a little bit to make them look a little bit more like definitely a homemade party hat. So is exactly what we're going for. So I'll go a little bit farther down on that one, and then I'm going to do this all the way around the hat, just like that. So now we're going to work on that green and yellow circle that goes on the front. Now this is exactly kind of how much room you want it to be. It's kind of real close to the edge here. That's about perfect, but it wasn't actually close enough to the bottom here. But since the ribbon that we're using is a little bit thicker, that'll be fine. So what I decided to do is I always trace it out on paper first, and I actually used my ribbon piece as the circle, and I traced it out on paper, and now I'm going to use that and kind of trace it up against it, kind of hold it up. That looks about perfect. It's exactly right in the center, the right distance from the top, and also in between from the ribbon. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to cut out one giant circle of the green felt, and then I'm going to cut out an exact half circle of the yellow felt. So once you've gotten the perfect circle, we're actually going to cannibalize our piece of paper here. So I'm going to draw a line directly through the center, pair of scissors, cut that out, and then use that as my template for the kind of the semicircle of yellow that we're going to stick directly on top of this and stick the entire thing onto the hat. So I'm going to do that now. So I've got that semicircle, it works great. Now we're going to use the glue gun one more time. We're going to just measure it up exactly where I need to stick it. Going to put a little bit of hot glue on there, not too much, because this is the much thinner foam that felt that we're using. It's a lot more flexible. So we're going to stick it directly on top. Of course, we're going to do it on the right side. That's exactly what it looks like in the show, in that very short scene on the show. Stick it down. It doesn't have to be perfect, as I've said a few times. Let that dry, and then we're going to stick it directly onto our hat, and then we're done. So now we actually get to glue the circle on. Now, from what I've seen on the show, it's actually very flimsily glued on. It's actually just kind of a line of glue straight down the center, and that's it. The sides are very easily just peeled up, but really the only part down the center is exactly what holds it on. So I'm just going to go directly down the line on the back part here of that. And once again, like I said before, you're only going to get pretty much one shot at this, so put a little bit of glue on there. We're going to line it up directly with one of the points here, and then make sure you get a good kind of spot in between, not too far from the top, not too close to the bottom. Make sure it's lined up vertically, perfectly, and then just give it a good hold to make sure that it stays on. And you'll see exactly what I mean by the flaps. They can definitely, just be peeled up, but it's really just in the center is what holds it on. And you can see this other one over here has the exact same deal. So I'll hold that down, and then our entire Doctor Who Christmas hat is done. So that is the Doctor Who Christmas hat from the episode of Christmas Carol. Is it silly? Absolutely. That's one of the things they were definitely going for when they made this hat for him to wear in the episode. I do have a few pictures of what it looks like from the show, so I can show you on my phone. You can tell it looks pretty accurate. It's got the same color. It's got that circle with the green and the yellow on each side and that gold band around the center. And of course I have another picture of a close-up of him wearing it. Matt Smith has a lot of hair, so you can kind of see his hair kind of pops out on the top, and that's one of the things I struggled with trying to do, was trying to get the right size hat here. So if I had a lot of hair, it would definitely probably come up the top here, but as I don't, it definitely, it looks a lot taller on me than it does on him. So that's pretty much the Doctor Who Christmas hat tutorial. Hope you guys liked it. There'll be more videos coming to Pop Culture Crafts pretty soon. Hopefully you guys are going to stick around for those. Take care.